Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Naked and Truth podcast. It is me, Sari D, your host and creator, and we are back with a very motivational story today, guys. I'm not here alone, and I have the one and only Dr. Marc Morris here with us. Do you want to say hey to everybody, Marc?
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I'm excited to chat here.
Absolutely. So, some of you guys might know him by his Dr. Marc method. He is very well educated in the nutrition space. He would be great to educate you if you are a coach that's looking to go into the nutrition field. But we are not going to use his expertise on that today. We are actually going to dive deep into a personal story with Marc because I think that we assume that when we see successful people that they haven't really been through a lot in their life. Like I think that we can look at Marc and say, he's a successful guy, he's a doctor, he's been able to go off on his own and start his own business so that he could fit his family life. Like it really looks like this man just has it all together. And it must have been so easy to get there is what we assume while we're trying to build our lives and feeling like we're getting through all these sticky things that life puts us through, right? And
Totally.
when we go through those moments, honestly, sometimes we feel like we're the only person being faced with it and that everybody else in the world is just smooth and dandy trying to get to where they need to go, right?
Completely. Yeah. No, entirely.
Absolutely. Well, I first just want to thank you so much for coming on this podcast and being willing to open and share about this story, because I really do think that it's going to hit a lot of people who are maybe in a spot in their life where they feel like everything is currently falling apart and that they can't see that light at the end of the tunnel. And kind of your experience of what you've been through and how you've been able to grow yourself and your mindset to where you currently are today. Okay.
Sounds good.
Awesome. I love it. Okay. So when it comes to you yourself, you are currently a married man with one child right now. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes, we have a little guy named Max. He's just about to turn 3, and we have my wife Amy and myself have a new one on the way at the end of March. So
No way. Well,
yeah,
congratulations on that.
uh,
So obviously life is a little busy right now.
it is for sure. Yeah, it's a little wild.
So is that why you decided to take your business more so online than to be underneath someone else? Or where did
Uh,
you kind of go with that to get a little back history on where you're at right now?
Actually, to be completely honest, my business has always been like, I would say 95% online. Like pre-pandemic, I was doing some in-person strength coaching in kind of a group environment. But when the pandemic hit, it was just a natural transition into taking everything online. But even my clients, my one-on-one nutrition coaching clients and powerlifting clients, I would have
Yeah.
been doing everything online since like 2012. So it was just, I've always been in the internet.
You've been ahead of the game. I love it. It's
I
a
guess
good.
so. It was one of those. It just made a lot of sense for me. I've been, um, if I can get a specific result and work with someone in like a streamlined fashion, I've been pretty anti brick and mortar for as
Yeah,
long, as I've been around this stuff. And that's not to say like I love gyms and in different environments like that. And
of
it's really,
course.
really important. It's just, it was never for me in a business sense. So, I've been doing the online thing and talking to people just like this through the internet for as long as I can remember.
Well, you know what? I'm glad that you're doing what you're doing because you're impacting so many lives with it. And so
Thank you.
you're welcome. So when it comes to you and your wife, you guys were both leading businesses when you first kind of got together, right? Both
Mhm.
entrepreneurs, if I'm correct there. Awesome.
Yeah,
So
well, like even Amy's background too, like a little bit more
yeah,
in a like a clinical sense. We both have like an entrepreneurial spirit and stuff, but I think for the longest time we were probably destined to more like conventional roles. Like
mhm,
I taught 2 full university courses while working on my PhD, and was very much like in um on the like the kind of on track to become like a tenured professor, do
mhm.
research based stuff, but always really liked working with people. So I've been able to take things in a different way. And based on Amy's experience, like in medical background and stuff, she would have been in clinical roles, but in the last little bit has been able to focus on more private practice stuff and helping people just like her, which we'll talk about in a second. So
Beautiful.
yeah, I don't know, like a lot of it's been a balance of, I don't know, for the longest time being on a conventional path, but always knowing I wanted to do something differently.
Something
So
different. Yeah. Well,
yeah,
good for you guys for following your
thanks.
heart because a lot of people
Yeah,
don't have the guts to do that. And
for sure.
nobody ever
And then
wants to be looking back or feeling like they're at a point in their life where it feels like it's ending and they're
You wake
looking
up
back.
and you're like 70 and you're like, yeah, what just happened?
Yeah. Why didn't I choose to make any of the decisions that I actually wanted to go with? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So you guys ended up having something really serious happen in your relationship when you guys were quite young, when you think about somebody going through something like this. So I'm wondering if you could open up about your story of what happened
Sure.
with you and your wife in 2016 that really kind of put a rock in everything that was going on.
Yeah, totally. I'll do my best job to give you the briefest recap of it. I grew up in I had a very easy life for a very long time. Let me preface this up by saying, like, being like a white educated male, I faced very few obstacles for the longest time. Which led me to, I don't know, I was always kind of like I would say, how do I say this? I was a bright young boy. Smart, liked science and stuff, and was always destined to go to university, that type of thing. Wasn't exactly sure what I would do, but went down a conventional path of getting a university degree. My bachelor's degrees in chemistry. Didn't fully enjoy it, but knew I wanted to do something like in the health and fitness space. And I remember seeing John Berardi speak in like 2006, and at that point I was really getting into like health and fitness and lifting weights. And I was like, oh, I wonder if there's a way I can combine this, like, scientific mind with helping people through fitness and nutrition and stuff like that. And at that point, like, a lot of the things that we know right now just didn't exist. Like, you would either take kinesiology and become like a physio, or you would become like, go like into hard chemistry and do like lab-based stuff. But there's no like the stuff that we know now in terms of, I don't know, pioneers in the space and like evidence-based coaching and stuff. It just like didn't exist. But I remember
very black and white, right? Of
it was just very like
conventional
path. People didn't invest in that kind of stuff. Like, it just wasn't a thing, right? We had articles on the internet and we read them, but other than that, like, we were just experimenting and whatever. But I remember hearing Berardi speak, and someone had asked him, how do we become you? How do we do all these cool things with like nutrition and, in business and, designing products and like helping people and stuff. And I remember him just saying, like, if you went to school for long enough or something and studied hard, you can do it. And I was just like, that's a BS answer. I could get nothing from that. But I remember seeing his credentials in terms of being a PhD CSCS and just thinking, well, I got to copy that. If I've gathered anything from that. So just went down that path and applied to grad school, and then came out here and continued lifting and studying and that stuff, and met my beautiful wife, Amy. And things were on a path of, I was starting to get into powerlifting coaching quite seriously, and coaching at the international level and doing a lot of traveling. And between like 2014 and 2015, I had taken like, I was all over the place finishing my PhD. I had taken like 60 flights all over the place to like just jet setting and living, all over the place. And we had a family wedding. Amy had a conference in Chile, and then we had a family wedding in Hawaii. And I remember getting back home and being like, oh man, like, I got to relax a little bit. Now it's time to like settle in and that type of thing. And then, I don't know, to get into like the story of things. So in May of 2016, I got the phone call that I never want to get. And I live in Saskatoon. My entire family is from southwestern Ontario near Windsor. You got a phone call that was like, Marc, your dad's had a heart attack. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And originally I was like, oh man, like, what is this? What is the meaning of this kind of thing? And yeah, my dad had a heart attack. It was in a coma. And then within like 4 or 5 days of being home, passed away like somewhat suddenly. So it was like,
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, like it was
nobody's prepared for that, right?
No kidding. And like, especially like being like elements of him passing away from a heart attack, like some aspects preventable, and probably, carrying some guilt around like, here I am living this healthy life and stuff. And but I couldn't have. He was his own dude. So.
It's so true. Can't tell Dada what to do.
No, totally. And he wouldn't have wanted me to or anything like that. So that happened. And in the midst of that, we were getting ready to get married and all that stuff. We had bought a house. And there's so many moving pieces and stuff. And that was
big moments,
big life events for sure. Yeah. So then we, everything getting set to getting married in September, big life event, that type of thing. The wedding was beautiful, went over really well.
Mm.
We ended up going on a honeymoon to Italy and Greece and really enjoying ourselves, having the time of our life, doing like, the things that you should do, drinking wine, eating pizza, just enjoying ourselves, that kind of thing. And then like Amy came
Picturesque.
home.
I love it.
Yeah, exactly. And then we came home and Amy started getting like really like distended and just like tons of bloating. But I mean, like we had just been like doing whatever we wanted for weeks, right? And
Yeah.
she's really athletic individual, that type of thing. So we just didn't really think much of it.
You're
And
thinking
then,
just ate some food that didn't agree well with her,
yeah,
hasn't been paying attention to moving as much, that type of thing.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, like stuff like that. And then it didn't go away and continued to get worse. And it was one of those things where she had to really advocate for like something's not right here, and then going down the path of like, what is this, that type of thing. And then like before you know it, it was like weeks later, and 6 weeks after our actual wedding, she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer and had
No.
like a 2 kilo tumor, right? And she's
Oh my gosh. So that's what
like
was actually creating the
135
bloating.
pounds. Yeah, exactly. So
Wow.
going down that path and then having surgery and chemotherapy and all that stuff. So it was like just like I was living like such a easy, straightforward life for the longest time. And then it was
Yeah.
just like emotional turmoil in terms of just
And
landing in my lap.
And that's the thing is that, I think that it's not until things actually go bad or things go wrong that you really
Yeah.
realize how much you value how great your life is. And I'm wondering, did you actually know how great and cushy your life was until that really happened? Or did that really allow you to look back and be like, holy crap, I have actually had such an awesome life, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like it did have an like I'm generally pretty optimistic and positive
You are,
and
yeah.
that type of thing. But like it definitely like puts everything in perspective. And there's like some like definite dark moments and that type of stuff. But I'm also like I'm strangely stoic about things in terms of like, okay, this is what it is. This is what we're going through. This is,
And
like
you've
that type of
always
thing.
been
So
that
almost like,
way.
yeah, a bit.
Okay.
I think there's just, I mean, growing up, I guess like it wasn't the easiest time growing up. I was like, a little bit pudgy, bullied, kind of like in
Totally.
grade 7, I was in the liturgical dance team, which is like church dancing. I was made fun of a little
Okay. Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. I hear
So
you. All right. I would have been probably
I think
making
there's
fun of you
elements of
because I was a bully.
yeah. So there's elements of things that I probably like wanted in my life and wasn't getting,
Yeah.
and just was like kind of like created a resiliency around like this is the way things are, and that's okay, and I'll get to where I want to be. So I can be pretty stoic about stuff, but in terms of just like trying to make sense of it all and it all coming at me at once, it was just like a lot
Yeah.
to
Well,
try to like
how do you even
process.
process that? That's the thing is like
Yeah.
you literally came off of what seems like a dream because like let's just be honest, when you're able to travel back to back, it is like a dream. You know what I mean? You're
Sure.
seeing
Yeah.
all sorts of different cultures and just experiences,
Hmm.
and especially like you said, there was different weddings that were going on and conferences, and those are exciting
Hmm.
times. If people are
Yeah.
speaking, you're getting appreciated. If there's lots of love
Yeah.
at the weddings, and so it's
Hmm.
all this hype, 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 and then
Yeah.
you found your person and you guys have worked so hard on all these things the last couple of years, and you finally feel like that moment is coming together where it's just like it's just going to be me and you riding off into the sunset, right, kind of thing.
Exactly.
And it's like
Yeah.
you didn't even get that time to even sink into marriage yet before you had
Oh,
this big
totally.
worry arise. And like if I can be completely honest, like finances, time, like
Oh, completely.
everything, right? Like I want to
Yeah.
know, what did you feel in that moment and what were some of your biggest concerns, if you don't mind sharing that with us?
Oh no, that's a good question. I think I'm being at one side, I'm like very stoic and try not to let like just like next thing that's in front of me deal with that, like not trying to get too emotionally wrapped into things and be like the rock for a lot of like different people, be it Amy or even just like, you know, kind of being that voice of reason or just always being there, that type of thing. But like, yeah, like I think there's elements of like, what are we going to do? We still have like bills to pay for and things. And like cancer and just like chronic disease itself is like, man, it's like life doesn't stop and it's expensive. Like there's things that like you never think about, like going to the hospital and like paying for parking for a day while like your wife gets, IV chemotherapy. Like it's
So
like,
true.
like stuff like that, right? Like there's like a lot of costs associated with it. And obviously we're lucky to be in a healthcare system where, things are subsidized and
Mhm.
there are some graces and stuff. And I can only imagine if it wasn't like that, what it would be like. Right. But yeah, tons of like financial stress, and especially with like horror story around, being self-employed. Like this is, and no one prepares for, in terms of, you always have that one family member being like, oh yeah, you're self-employed, but wait till this happens.
That's
Cause
exactly it, right? Yeah.
right. Like you're not going to have this
You
sort
don't
of
have
like
that security.
yeah, exactly. Right. So just being like that and kind of going from that, but those type of things, I think just being somewhat a creature of habit and knowing, like trying to keep some sense of normalcy through it all was really, really important in terms of like structure around like training and working and that type
Still
of stuff.
doing
So
you to keep you
yeah,
full.
yeah, exactly. So stuff like that
Yeah.
was important. And um, yeah, I think just like knowing that, I remember even just sending the email after my dad passed away being like, I need a break for a week, guys. But after that, like I would appreciate if things are like normal, because that's what I
Yeah.
need. Right.
Yeah.
Like I need things to like
Pick back up.
continue on and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's elements of like me being in, in a hospital room with my laptop and just like working through it, but still being there, which I like feel very grateful I was able to like be there the entire
Be
time and
there
that
and
type of thing, and not
still
have to,
put money on the
yeah,
table with that
yeah, that kind of
security,
stuff.
right?
Right, right. So like those type of things. But yeah, I think there's just like so much uncertainty, and just trying to take like, one step at a time, that is really, really important.
Well, and knowing you, I can imagine that your wife is a very strong woman, but and I'm sure that she was probably very, very balanced, I guess you could say, in her taking the news as well, of trying to be as positive as she could with it, of trying to deal with what she could, and you needed to be that strong person though. That's the
Yeah,
thing, is
totally.
that even though it's so hard for you to take that news, you needed to be there for her to be the strong person, right?
Yeah. Yeah. How would I describe this? Amy is like the most remarkable person ever, but not in the conventional way of like um being super positive. Like she's very much a realist, and
Okay.
like, yeah, but like just the toughest like even in terms of like going through this process and stuff, there's good news at the end. She ends up like beating it and getting back to life and stuff. And even by like, she finished chemo in I think she was finished in late February, early March. Um, and like had like a huge like in terms of like, not only did she have like chemo and stuff, but she got this tumor removed that was like a really invasive surgery. It wasn't
Yeah,
just like laparoscopic, like they opened her
totally.
up, that kind of thing. And like getting through that, but she was like, she's got back to like lifting within the fall, and I think she squatted like 145 kilos
You got to be
like
kidding me.
by September. Yeah, she's like a national like powerlifting champ. Like so like,
Wow.
yeah, no, she doesn't like mess around. But like, so her mindset around all of those things and stuff, and just watching like the toughest person go through all this stuff, was
Yeah.
like definitely like, you have no choice but to take things on the chin,
Yeah.
I guess, is the biggest thing. So it's just important to find someone that like pushes you in those ways, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so,
Yeah.
so did you find that in those few months that you guys were going through everything, that she was that strength that kept you going because of her her realism? Like, do
Yeah.
you feel like
Yep.
that actually was like a bit, because you weren't getting like the sugar coating, like everything's going to be okay? It's
Totally.
like, look,
Yep.
babe, shit might not be okay. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
No. Yeah.
But
I
no
would say
matter
there's,
what, we're going to keep going every day together at this,
for sure.
right?
For sure. Yeah. And I think finding like strength in each other to do that was just something that helped us, push forward.
And like you mentioned, this ends in a great story where she did 100% beat it. Is that correct?
Yeah. 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 Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
See, and that is so beautiful that you guys were able to make it through that. But what I want to know too is so you watched her be the strongest person going through
Uh-huh.
this. You
Yeah.
watched her recover out of the hospital and get
Yeah.
back into normal life, and even PR that normal life
Yeah.
so quickly, right?
Mhm.
And I just want to know, like, how did that make you grow from your wedding in September to the following September of that year? Because she was already squatting that weight by the following, right, September. So
Yeah, well,
it's like,
it was like remarkable to see. Like, I think a lot of times we like the things that we'll do to just get back to normal and stuff like can be expedited just because like that's what we kind of have our sight set on and that type of thing. But um, I don't know if I have a good answer for you because I like literally look like I aged like 12 years and
yeah,
like in like 18 months.
yeah.
Yeah, like a
Because it's this, because this shit
yeah,
is for
no, totally.
real, right? Like, and
Yeah.
that's the thing, is that it's not fun going through this stuff. It's not just roses and rainbows. It's not just a year and the pain's over and everything's healed and we're good to go, right? Like, there's so many psychological and even physiological things that you're trying to heal from that moving forward. And I want to know of, how did this change your life from that happening to who you were prior to that?
I think it added like a real level of like resiliency around like um what matters, but like a lot of things don't matter like in the big picture in terms
Mhm.
of like, I'm like a very objective person around like growing my business and results and that kind of stuff. And it's like as someone that gets so wrapped into that stuff, I think it really just solidified.
What actually matters?
Yeah, exactly. Like that type of thing and like that stuff. And um just being able to like when you find yourself in those situations, that knowing that like if you can just take one step forward, like things will improve and that type of stuff. Or just, you know, being able to survive it and maintaining like if you get out to the other side, like things will get better. So um
Well, and I think that that's a great piece of advice, and it sounds like your wife has really gone through everything and taken it to now apply to inspire and help other people in their
yeah.
lives with the same thing. So I'm sure that the listeners would love to hear a little bit about what Amy's up to, and how this is now transforming other people's lives with what she's been
Yeah.
through.
No, she's been able to like get into the cancer recovery space, specifically with like people that went through treatment. And it's an interesting dynamic where they beat something really, really um intense. But afterwards it's kind of like, left with a bunch of like side effects and in a position where they don't really, um feel like themselves anymore. So
Yeah,
reclaiming that through, like being able to do like evidence-based nutrition and exercise strategies and stuff. And it can be really, really
beautiful.
helpful. So just providing that support through that experience.
Well, and how cool is it to have a doctor on your side that's actually been there? Because, like, when you're
Yeah.
sick and you're struggling, and the doctor's like trying to be positive, and it's like, what the fuck do you know?
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? While you're trying to
Yeah.
get through it all. And so I think that
Totally.
that's really, it just makes a person feel that much more understood when somebody has gone through
Oh
something
yeah.
similar to them. So I think that that's really cool that she's able to kind of be that crutch, I guess you could say, for other people that are going through it, and being able to help them in such a holistic way as well, I think is
Mhm.
really awesome. So
Mhm.
to leave these listeners with a piece of advice, what do you think you would leave these listeners with if they were wondering how to make it through something really hard in their life, where, it felt like everything was coming together, but now it feels like everything's been pulled in different directions? Because, like, for example of what happened with you guys, your finances were pulled in different directions. This
Mhm.
idea of what your marriage looked like just kind of crumpled, and you have no idea what that looks like moving forward. You are now the housekeeper, and any other role that Amy was playing, you now need to
Mhm.
take over. So dynamics really change. So if somebody's going through something really hard and they're still trying to grind through their business, what would you give them for a piece of advice?
I think when those moments, like it's one of those things where it's so easy to get caught up in like, everything that's going around you and what you have to do in terms of just like surviving. I think it's just really important to know, especially like in a caretaker sense, um, like what's important to you and what will make you feel like normal. Right. And for me,
Mhm.
it was just having, a sense of normal so I could, continue on
Yeah.
and kind of just, be able to like cope with those things. So there's things like continuing to lift and making time for that, as well as like continue to work and provide value in that way so that I can like, have that purpose as well as what was going on with me, I think was just like really, really important to like
Mhm.
move through it. So I think it's just like building a business where it's so easy to get wrapped up into like the day to day, what's going on with you, but just being able to like try to take a step back and think what's important to me here so that I can still be myself, allows people to get through that stuff. And it's the same thing with like people can get through incredible things when they have something to push them forward. Right.
Well, and I think that as you're saying, like people need to build this sense of normalcy. I also want to remind people that normalcy is different, right? Like it doesn't like
Mhm.
when something like this happens, your normal is now going to look different than what your normal
Yeah.
did prior. So that means that like, let's just say you used to be able to do 10 things for yourself in a day. Now you might only be able to do 3, and you need to pick those top 3 that are most important to you, that are going to
Right.
help allow your cup to be the most filled so that you can finish dealing with whatever is taking your new priority, right? Especially
Totally.
when it's something that is for somebody else as well, right?
Yeah.
Is making sure that you're still getting that normal in for you, because as humans, we very much want to love and help others. And sometimes we let go of ourselves looking after other people. And so Marc said that a really big thing was making sure that he still had those couple vital things in his day that made
Yeah.
him feel like it was routine, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah, totally.
I think that that's a great piece of advice to leave everybody with. That is amazing. So now you are up to all sorts of crazy, awesome things all the time. And everybody needs to go and check you out, because not only do you have the best reels around town, but you got
You like
good.
them?
Oh, I love your reels. They are always making me laugh. I'm like, he has so many different props to use as well. I'm like, his poor kid's tickle trunk is probably getting, tossed through more
Yeah.
than the kid does, but it's awesome, your content. So where can everybody find you? Is there a website that people can go and check out more information about what you actually do for coaching? Give us all the details.
Yeah, sure. I'm probably most active on Instagram at MERCW Morris. And feel free to come check me out there. You'll find like, more information around what I do in terms of training other nutrition coaches and my program, the Dr. Marc Method, and kind of what we do in terms of helping also clients through polyhealth. So there's a few options there, but you find most of that information on my Instagram.
Beautiful. So I will make sure that I link that down in the notes
Sounds
for
good.
everybody. But I just want to thank you so much for coming on here and telling your story. It really is just good to know that people of all walks of life go through
Yeah,
all different things. Nobody's special. You know what I mean? And that's what I really
totally.
wanted the message to be, is that we are all unique in our own way, and we have our successes and our struggles in our own way. And we cannot look at somebody else and just assume that their life has been easy, because
Totally.
there's so many moments that have made us into who we are. Okay.
Completely.
So
Completely.
thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's episode. And you know that I will catch you